Beirut ripped apart. The scars of a massive explosion visible in the daylight. And the questions about why alarming the world.
بس كتير هالقد كتير فرد مرة على شعب.
Beirut's government admits thousands of tons of something called ammonium nitrate were stored at the facility that blew up. It's a chemical linked to explosions around the world for more than a century. Now, Newsy discovered some of the U.S. government's own red flags about the chemical's storage have gone unaddressed. And there's little public information tracking the chemical. AN is the same fertilizer that was sitting in a West Texas facility that caught fire, then exploded in 2013. 15 people died. Decades earlier, in the 1940s, an explosion of ammonium nitrate killed nearly 400 people in Texas City. Different explosions over different generations, all involving the same chemical stored unsafely. In 2014, a government watchdog found scant oversight of the chemical and facilities that store it. The Government Accountability Office said the U.S. government had no way of knowing all the locations in the country storing the chemical. Plus, the watchdog said OSHA inspections do not target facilities with ammonium nitrate. And, according to OSHA officials, information on these facilities is not available to them to use for targeting the facilities. The same year, a Newsy-affiliated station in Phoenix found this.
There's a loophole specifically for ammonium nitrate. If it's sold as a fertilizer, there's an agricultural retail exemption that means they don't have to report.
6 years later, the EPA just admitted to Newsy that loophole still exists, though it says it's not intended to apply to manufacturers and wholesalers who typically have large quantities of fertilizers. Now, the Department of Homeland Security collects reports from facilities that store above a certain amount of AN, but it's only accessible to approved individuals.
It can explode by itself, but it takes a pretty severe event. It's more likely to be an interaction with other materials as an oxidizer.
David Gossman is a chemist and farmer in Iowa.
If you're looking to put the largest amount of nitrogen on the soil as quickly as possible, ammonium nitrate's it.
But there's a predictable pattern if these chemicals are stored improperly. And without complete oversight, it's hard to ensure safe storage. The EPA advises facilities storing AN to tell local fire departments. But late last year, the Trump administration reversed a rule that required facilities storing other dangerous chemicals to tell the surrounding community.
That is something that a good company behaving in a manner in which is being a good neighbor does with the local community. You create a burden on the people who are already doing a good job, right? An additional burden, which is probably not going to be complied with the people who are cutting corners.
The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency did recommend regulation to prevent AN's use in terror attacks.
We want you up here so when we get the baby, we can come and find you, all right?
The main ingredient in the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing was 2 tons of ammonium nitrate. The new rule would require facilities tell the government if, for instance, some of its stockpile goes missing. But the proposal is still just that, proposed. It hasn't become a formal regulation. And it says nothing about preventing accidental explosions like in 2013.
An additional set of paperwork regulations on people who are already doing a good job isn't going to prevent that type of accident.
What is, in your opinion?
I'm not sure, honestly. There are always going to be people who cut corners, and there are always going to be people who violate the law.
There is still skepticism that the government in Beirut is telling the truth. It initially claimed this might have been a fireworks explosion. David Gossman, the chemist, says it might be ammonium nitrate. But he says certain telltale signs, like the color of the explosion, are odd. James Packard, Newsy, Chicago.